Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for coming, and I think the doctor was excellent. And I'll do my best to speak really quickly. I am a practitioner in Social Security disability law. That is the only thing that I practice. Our practice is nationwide. So we go from Florida, where we're headquartered, all the way to Hawaii, Guam. We have some cases in Europe. So any person who is disabled and unable to work, if you've paid money into the system and you have quarters of coverage, you will be entitled to disability, regardless of where you live. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit about Social Security disability, the process, the issues if you are currently on disability, what you can expect in terms of review and in terms of quality of care that you're receiving, and the importance of diagnosis and complaints and documenting everything. But before that, I'd like to explain to you what I do and why I'm here. I'm very passionate about helping disabled people, more so in areas that are remote and where there's very little medical attention, very little education and understanding what's going on. MS is an example of a disease that sometimes people are lucky they get a diagnosis right away when they have some complaints, but more often than not, they suffer through MS for several months or years before they have their diagnosis, and they're unable to work, and that's the reason that I'm committed to it. I see a lot of changes and a lot of things that we can do before they get the diagnosis. It's easier to get benefits once you have treatment, you have established medication, and you're stabilizing yourself. So in that way, it's very beneficial to a group of individuals like you that are educated and are coming to become more educated and have more understanding of your treatments and what's out there. But there are so many people that are just under-helped, under-educated, under no idea of what's going on. So when you ask people, why do you need an attorney to apply for Social Security disability, more than anything, the answers go by fear of the unknown. They didn't know they had to get an attorney, and you don't have to. Social Security does not even promote the fact that you should have an attorney. There are many very well-meaning caseworkers, managers, nurses that also help through the system. So a lot of individuals feel like I have a connection with them. I don't necessarily need an attorney. Sometimes it's fear of money. Oh no, I can't afford an attorney. So anywhere that you are looking at when it comes to Social Security disability, attorneys that practice this area of law are very regulated. They're statutorily regulated, which means anywhere in the nation, we all have to be approved by the government. And in general, you only get paid if you win your case. So you don't have to come out of pocket to get a Social Security attorney. So that's a misnomer when people think they need income or money or something to be able to go to an attorney. So fear of not knowing. Some people are too busy. Some people think it's too expensive. And my favorite one is they have a relative who's a lawyer. So my neighbor, my relative, they're a lawyer. They'll take care of it. That's a big problem because, like in the medical field, you wouldn't go to an orthopedic necessarily for your neurological complaints of MS. You wouldn't really go to an accident lawyer or even a workers' compensation lawyer for cases that deal with Social Security disability. It's a very niche, small practice. It is a federal kind of practice. So if you're licensed as an attorney to practice, you can practice in any state. One of the main reasons that we get out of Florida is because there's a very lack of accountability when it comes to Social Security disability hearings. They're very, very private. If anybody, how many people have been in a hearing environment where they're before an administrative law judge? Okay, so these hearings are really your attorney or your person who's advocating for yourself, the judge, a monitor who records notes for your judge. Sometimes they have vocational experts, sometimes they have medical advisors, translators if a person doesn't speak the language, and that's it. And there's no public coming in to look at what goes on in that procedure. There's no accountability other than an oral recording of what goes on in that hearing room and that tape. So judges are very, very insulated. Every office of Social Security, and this is not even part of my presentation, but every office of Social Security has maybe 10 or 12 judges. They are federal employees. They are paid by the Social Security Administration, and they are supposed to be unbiased, okay? Some are, some aren't. They are insulated. The public has no idea what goes on in this room, okay? And sometimes the judges treat you with respect and dignity, and sometimes they don't. When you are facing 2 or 3 or 4 hearings in one day with the same judge, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's, you have to be respectful, no matter how flagrant they are, or no matter how they're bending the law. You have to maintain a certain efficacy and professionalism, okay? And you more than anything want to make sure that your client feels that they have somebody who's compassionate and fighting for them, but not burying them by fighting with a judge. When you go into a nationwide setting, you're opening the doors to that insular nature of Social Security. So we're able to see the trends nationwide of what's going on, what judges are working, what federal court appeals are working, what the appeals council is saying, the state laws, the federal laws. It all flows a little bit better. God bless you. And you can see, how successful you can be when your hands are not tied and you don't feel like this judge is, paying your next paycheck for your mortgage or worrying about the client. You just go all out. And the judges have learned to really respect you as a nationwide practice. So it's a very local and a very personal issue when you have an impairment, and privacy is utmost importance. But the ability to talk in these kind of programs, the ability to know what's available helps so many people. And it also helps judges, and it helps the Social Security personnel understand that when you come into a Social Security office for an interview, they do judge you. Like everybody judges, it's just a normal human phenomenon. So you look at someone, you know how they look, what they're wearing, and many people go to Social Security to fill out applications dressed up with nail polish made up, or men with button shirts and shoes that have shoelaces, and Social Security will write on those notes. And this is what I argue in court. So I see this every day. They will write down, patient is well groomed, patient claims they're not able to bend, but they have shoelaces. They're detailed with, you have numbness or tingling or problems with fine motor skills, but you have earrings on. They will document this, and this is what they are trained to look for, okay? Now we're in an election year, so the bar is a little higher, meaning I'm not claiming any party in particular. I'm just saying that when it's an election year, and I've been doing this now, I'm in my 24th year of practice, you can see the ebb and the flows. Every election, we have furloughs, we have problems, we have Social Security is on the news, it's on the front page, it's a huge issue, and they're trying to cut benefits. So every time they can slow your process of obtaining benefits, they're saving billions of dollars on paper. Eventually, you get it back, because eventually, it's been my experience, you fight through and you're successful and you win your case and you get the retroactivity, but in the meantime, you're suffering through it. So with that said, I'm going to go to my slideshow. I do want to know by show of hands, just informationally, how many people are currently on Social Security disability? Okay. And how many people are currently in the process of applying? Okay, so this is geared towards an informational setting, but I don't want to be rushed by Stu, so I'm going to speak really quickly because I find that what people need the most are answers to their particular questions. I also will be here afterwards, so that's not a problem, and I will let you know that I will be here in 3 weeks. I have some cases in front of the federal judges in Albuquerque, so I'll be happy to meet with anybody then too, okay? So this is me. And basically, there are 2 types. There are many more types, but there are 2 basic types of Social Security disability programs. One is Title II, which is when you work, you pay money into the system, and you receive benefits based on the money you put into Social Security. Then there's also Title 16. That's for individuals who either worked but didn't pay enough into the system, and it doesn't bring them above the poverty level, or they didn't work and their poverty level. Okay, so you may see Title 16 for a person who worked a long time ago and their quarters of coverage expired. You may see Title 16 for children who have illnesses. They would qualify under that program. It's still all under the umbrella of Social Security disability. People say SSDI, and those acronyms can get confusing. So DIB is really a Title II. That's when you put money into the system. And SSI is really the welfare type based program where you not only have to be disabled, you also have to be financially eligible for that. Okay, that's Title 16. The definition of disability is very simple with a lot of complications, but it's basically for any person who is disabled and unable to work for a period of 12 months or more. Okay, that's the basic definition, or suffers from an impairment resulting in death. Okay, so unable to perform past relevant work is a big issue because we have to look at what kind of work did you do. Vocational factors come in, whether we can transfer your job to do something else. If you can work on the computer, then basically you can maybe do data entry job even though you were a cook in the past. And all those things have to do with your age, your education, how often, what kind of work you did, and what the duties were, exertional levels to those jobs. So we break that down very, very, we really have to go into every single document, every 12-step analysis on every job you did, going back 15 years. Whether you're able to adjust to another work because of your condition, or whether your disability is expected to last in death, okay? The resulting in death is very, very esoteric because in general we can say anything can result in death. So it's really for, and we'll talk about compassionate allowances, which MS falls under, but they're for the very, very, very severe cases. So I will give you an example of that. I have had 5 people in the month of August die on me. Very severe cases that met the definition of compassionate allowance. I know the judges, I know the Social Security personnel, I know the law. I was pushing these cases and they just didn't get to the front of the line the way they should have. So now I'm dealing with their survivors, okay? It's a very hard type of practice. It's a practice that you have to really devote your life to if you're going to do it well. So it's not the kind of thing you just do Social Security a little bit of it. You either believe in it and you're all in, and you find attorneys that feel that way, and you always make sure that you have somebody who is going to really be an expert, really devote their practice to this. So if you have somebody who does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, be careful. Because I know what I was doing and I did everything right and I still couldn't get it for them. They were also very, very sick. So the last thing they cared about was picking up medical records and making sure that their questionnaires got filled out timely so that I could send this to Social Security, okay? Thankfully, everything is now done electronically. So the electronic age is amazing because it brings not only education programs like this everywhere, it also brings education to everyone individually. Not everybody has the health care. So I was blown away when the question came for the neurologist, and she's semi-retired, and there are 2 other doctors that are not there really taking new patients. And you're here educated enough, but how many people are suffering that don't even know what's available? Electronic media is excellent. It's a wonderful way of getting information out there. But then the fear of really showing up is sad. So preparation is the most important thing. Having a relationship with your clients, being able to talk to them, finding out what were the symptoms that even brought you to the doctor in the first place. Were you fatigued? Were you lethargic? And during that time, how many days were you missing of work? Were you really disabled back then and didn't know? How many people have MS and are working through it? That's very, very commendable. But how many people have I seen with MS wait until they're not able to work anymore to apply for Social Security? This process takes 12 to 18 months in general. Some people get it right away. That's based on their relationship with their doctors, their markers, their objective criteria, their health care insurance. That's a great story when you can get your benefits right away. But when you get denied and denied and denied, the process can take 12 to 18 months. Some take 2 years, some take 5 years if they have to be appealed. So my understanding, and I'm not a medical doctor, when you go through MS and you progress, that becomes your ceiling. So what I've seen is people push and push and push and go through the stress of working. By the time they come to me, if they already have a diagnosis of MS, if they're already declining, this process is very hard. So I will take the worry away from you, but the process is long and arduous. It's not meant to give you benefits. So don't wait until you're so sick to stop working. So if you have a doctor supporting you, and if you find that the days that you're taking off work, you're actually feeling better, it's important to note that, because for every time you decline, you may not be able to get that function back, and you don't want to get to that. So I see across the nation, many people that have MS are conquering it, and it's amazing to see. And some people will say, I'm working 20 hours a week, and they're at the cusp. And we wait another 6 months, another 18, 12 months. We wait and see, and we revisit the process of obtaining Social Security disability. And that's what I would urge you to do with your doctor. If you are working and you have MS, make sure that you are very aware of your prognosis. If you're stable, you're not having any remissions, you're not going, that's great. But know that you want to allow yourself 2 years where you're going to have to be out of work, and you're going to need to apply an appeal, unless you're at a severity where you're going to be allowed at a lower level. Okay, so this is really how we prepare for cases. Many of my colleagues don't prepare as well. Many take cases when they go to a judge. I take cases when they say, I can't work. I take your first application, because I like to take a case from the beginning so that you don't show up with earrings and nail polish, and you don't have shoelaces, and you let Social Security see you the way you feel. So I'm a big proponent, always have from day one, to start a case at the very beginning. We take cases at every stage. My colleagues want to take them when they're already at a hearing level, because they feel that it's less work, quicker outcome. Preparation is huge for us. Electronic submissions. Everything is electronic now. We have maybe 10 paper files left, which are appeals that have been lingering for a long time. But in general, everything is online, and it's real time, and it's wonderful, because you could see every single document that Social Security has done. When they break that down, what I'd like to see right now is the disability-related development. Can everyone see that? It's 1, 2, like second one up. It's that section E. That's the section where Social Security will write down, I called the client today, asked them how they were feeling, and they said good. I asked them what they were doing, and they said they were making lunch or they were online, okay? All of those things can transfer into work. And Social Security has the right to turn around, review you, okay? So whether you're on benefits, whether you're trying to get on benefits, any conversation you have, remember that you have applied for or you're on it because you're not able to work. Remember, you don't feel well, or you're doing okay, or this is not a good time, can't talk right now. That's it, okay? Because that benign conversation stays in your file forever. In 10 years, if they review you, it's there, okay? And that part is starting to be used in the last 8 years more and more to deny clients. Facebook, huge. Okay, so always be very careful because they do look to see how much activity you have and whether or not that can translate to work. Okay, they also have your medical records online, which is wonderful. It's saving thousands and thousands of dollars for clients. The doctors are able to scan them to us. We're able to scan them to Social Security, making it green, making it expedited, making it wonderful. Some older judges don't really open that little box and you have to tell them, no, it's here. You have to click on it and it's there. The newer judges are very quick to look at it and say, I don't buy it. And there is a new philosophy going on and people are getting denied. Denial rates are higher than ever right now. But with that said, there's a larger amount of cases right now on appeal. So those cases are starting to trickle back, and eventually we're going to go back and tell the judges that said that you were not disabled, tell them what the federal court says and tell them this is what you have to follow. This is the law. You're here to interpret the law. But everything is done right now electronically. Opening statements, referencing specific exhibits. I can go on and on. This is what I do. I actually train other attorneys on how to do this. I talk to doctors about the importance of documenting everything because we need to be able to reference from difficulty handwriting, brushing your teeth, holding a cup of water, driving, eating, preparing foods, taking medication, opening medical bottles, anything like that. We want to have it really, really rich in medical testimony and documentation so that we can just show the judge. This is not even the client saying it. This is the doctor supporting what the client is saying. And that's how we really make a case very strong. This is what quarters of coverage looks like for a case that's a DIB. So every C is a quarter of coverage for a year. This is your work history goes back to the age of 15 or 16 anytime you used your Social Security number. Here in New Mexico, we have a lot of problems with fraud. We have a lot of people who either have a quarter page like this showing earnings when there were none and somebody took their Social Security number. And then we have other people who live in rural areas and they have employers who have taken their Social Security money saying they're paying Social Security, and then you turn around and you do a report and you see that there are no earnings. So you see some fraud there. So this is a very nice documentation for us. To you, it looks like numbers. For me, this interprets exactly how much a person has worked, how consistently, which adds to credibility, and it shows gaps in work. And this is a little aged one where you could barely be, and I picked this one because it shows people who have worked but not enough and can qualify for both programs. Some are much higher, some are much lower, but this is what indicates what amount of money you're entitled to receive when you receive benefits. Oh, and it also, I touched on, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, but they're all like an hour in and of itself with regard to substantial gainful work activity, unsuccessful work activity, and trial work period. They're all a little different. Everybody's tried to work or is able to work, and how the government analyzes what your work hours are or any monies that you're getting. They're going to try to fit you into one of these categories, and these categories may turn around and take your benefits away or claim that you're not disabled. Okay. Compassionate allowance. I talked about this a little bit. MS falls under compassionate allowance, as do other impairments. It's not a separate program. This is a list of compassionate allowances. It's not an exhaustive list, okay? But for compassionate allowance, you need a lot of medical documentation, objective records showing your markers. You need very detailed requirements for each of the compassionate allowances. And unfortunately, when you have Social Security personnel, who are the people that take in your application, who question you about your daily living activities, who get your case ready for a hearing, they do not really respond very well to compassionate allowances, okay? It's a big issue because these people are case reviewers. They're not medical doctors. They're not sophisticated enough to really delineate whether all the requirements of a compassionate allowance are allowable. Okay, so what they're doing now when they get somebody like me is they have to send the file to a medical doctor to make sure that it matches. And that's what happened to me in August with 5 cases. And those are my 5 people that died. I had a real uphill battle. Now, I'm not responsible for their death, thankfully, and they were suffering a lot, and their family will end up getting something. But it's short. It's unnecessary worry and stress. So compassionate allowance, in theory, works great, but I would suggest that if you have anybody who even fits part of the MS compassionate allowance, if you have a doctor, before you file that initial application, have it all delineated by case preparation, by documenting exhibits, and really spoon feed it to them so that you're not waiting around for them to decide, who do I send this to? What neurologist will look at it? Because it's great having neurologists that help you, but not every district office, not every jurisdiction has neurologists who are available and willing to review cases for $75 an hour for Social Security cases. So Social Security, also, their hands are tied because they have limited resources in some areas. It is a way to get you to the front of the line. It doesn't mean you automatically get the benefits. And this is just an indication of all the different types of compassionate allowances. I can go through those more in detail. And then what happens to the person who has no diagnosis of MS, but many, 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 many of the symptoms? And years later they go, oh, you've had MS, I can see lesions, you have had MS for the last 4 years. What happens to that person? You know, very important. There's not just one way to win a Social Security case. There are many different ways. So it's not just the diagnosis of MS. The doctor was talking about, and anybody else can attest to, the activities of daily living, the exertional impairments that you have, lifting, bending, standing, kneeling, crawling, doing your activities of daily living, showering, getting around, driving, grocery store shopping, getting your laundry done. All those things are impairments, which will also create depression, anxiety, frustration. Those type of things have to be documented for you to be able to win your disability case. It can be a very humiliating process, and I understand that, but it's not meant to be. These are some of the ways that I argue other listings to get MS cases won. Okay, there's a disorganization of motor function. There's another one there that's just lower extremity motor function that I didn't put there. Problems with your vision, organic, mental impairments. So, you know, you could argue you have cognitive issues. So it's not just one listing that wins your case. It's a combination of effects. Okay, so you don't have to have, per se, a diagnosis of MS. You may still be unable to work and qualify for benefits. And that's me. And that's it. So I'm open to questions. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So I hope I answered every question, but I don't think I was as thorough as the doctor. So I apologize for that, but I could talk forever because I'm a lawyer and I do that. So I don't want to do that either. Stu will kick me out. So.
So So I'm going to go around the room, and I see we have a question start right here. I'm going in front of the camera, see? My legs hurt. I'm a little lightheaded up here, you know?
I'm not going to tell any lawyer questions. I want her on my side. What happens if your neurologist won't work with you on your SSDI application? Like, what if your neurologist doesn't want to work with you and sharing information with Social Security disability? Like, what if your neurologist doesn't do that, but your GP does?
Okay, so when you say sharing, do you mean not releasing the records or not completing questionnaires?
Just not really. I mean, she just doesn't want to do much of that stuff. I don't know exactly what she's willing to do, honestly. It's kind of like she says, I asked her about the Social Security disability, and she said, I don't do that. And I was like, what does that mean?
Okay, so I'll tell you my party line, and then I'll tell you what to do. My party line is switch doctors. You want a doctor who's going to advocate for you, who's going to support you, who's going to help you, make your life easier. Because if you do have MS and you are suffering, you need an advocate. And a doctor who's not willing to do that is not advocating for you. On the other hand, after today's listening to the doctor and seeing how few neurologists are out there and how much you need them, it's very easy for me to say, switch neurologists if you don't have another one to switch to. But there are a lot out there, and I do see many, many who help and can change people's lives around. Your GP, your general practitioner, can help. Your general practitioner can complete forms, can help assist in how much you can do, lift, carry, fill out forms for Social Security. But like anything, your neurologist is your specialist, and that holds even more weight legally. Is it enough with a GP? Yes. Have you won cases with a GP alone? Yes. Neurologists don't have the time or the funding to sit there for each individual client to complete files and medical records, but I would say to you, it is important. You're welcome.
Next. You make me run? Not going to happen. I'm in the wrong state to be running. My home is 3.2 feet above sea level.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just a quick question about assets. How do they come into play?
Okay, so assets, if they're not assets that you're currently working on, so if it's not income, if you have assets, you are not entitled to receive Title 16 benefits, which was the SSI, Supplemental Security Income. The reason is because it's a welfare-based program, so the federal government pays back the state who pays the county. But you haven't put money into the system to receive retirement benefits, or if you did, the benefits expired. So right now, if you have over $2,000 total resources, excluding your home, excluding one car, you are still okay for Social Security SSI benefits. But if you have more than that, or if you're married and your spousal income brings you above that, then they determine that based on your county and your state and how many children you have. And then it's a very detailed formula that Social Security does accurately. They end up doing that quite accurately to say whether or not you qualify for SSI or not. If you do not qualify for SSI, and you don't have the quarters of coverage, there's nothing that you can do other than go to county programs. But you would not be eligible under the federal Social Security disability.
Question over here.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
I have two questions. If a person is collecting Social Security disability and then chooses to go back to work, are they able then to reapply after they stop work again? And how difficult is it to get disability again? That's question one. Question two, if someone is receiving Social Security disability, when they become 65, does their benefit increase, decrease, or stay the same?
Okay, so I'll start with the easy one first. And the last one you said, even though I don't suffer for cognitive disorders, I can imagine not remembering the first one, so I wrote it down. So At age 65, you're just switched from one department of Social Security to another department of Social Security. In theory, you don't really change from one to another, okay? Your monies don't change, you're just in another department. If you had earnings, in your system, you may qualify for some higher number, but that's case specific. Okay, so if you're SSI, but when you were a teenager, you worked a lot and you didn't have the quarters of coverage, and then you are now 65, well, then you could qualify and come off one program and go into another. But in general, you end up with the same amount. Okay, the difficulties to get Social Security again. If you're on Social Security disability benefits and you are attempting to go back to work and you work part-time, how much money you make can disqualify you from receiving benefits, okay? So right now, the current number is, I want to say 1,100, 1,160, but I'm not sure. And I should have known that, but I didn't. So I can get back to anybody. But I would say to anybody, don't even be close to that. Stay far away from that, because anytime you work and you put money into the system, you're actually saying you're able to work. And then you're opening the door to say, how much are you working? And are you keeping those numbers artificially low so that you can double dip? So you can get some money on the side and continue getting Social Security. Are you actually able to do more hours of work? Okay, so be very, very careful with that. The Ticket to Work program is one of the concerns. It's a great program, really aimed to get people back at work, which ends up increasing your self-esteem, keeps your memory going. It's a good program, but you also want to make sure that you know that anytime you have earnings reported, you're putting a red flag. If you have a disability and your disability has stabilized, you may feel that you're able to go to work. Speak to your doctor, because work stressors, and what I've seen with MS, is that you go back to work because you're feeling great, then your benefits get cut off, or then you're working too much and you can't continue to work, and then you're getting stressed, and then you're having relapses. So be very careful when you start introducing yourself into the line of work again. When you see that, really is, I had a roofer who fell, broke both ankles and both knees, and was out for 16 months. That roofer was entitled to benefits, received the benefits for the period of time that it took to recover, and then once they stopped, they got better, they stopped their Social Security and went back to work successfully. That was great. MS is a progressive illness. I don't have to tell you that. You know that work can interfere with your ability to maintain yourself well, healthy. So I would say that if you want to start working because you're doing well, is to start with baby steps, okay?
Any other questions? Great. Before you get to yours, I have one for her, though. What's the difference between SSI and SSDI?
Okay, you should have been here in the beginning of the program. Who can answer that question for him? Please raise your hand. There you go, Stu. Come on.
I know the answer.
Everybody here. Who doesn't know the answer here? Anybody still doesn't know? Thank you. Thank you.
What's the answer?
Really?
What's the answer?
Social Security and insurance and Social Security disability insurance. No.
Yeah, what's the difference between the two?
One you have savings, one you don't.
Yeah, one is for people that have poverty level, and the other one is for people that have put money in the whole time. The other one is for people who don't have active money in the
Okay,
Social
great.
Security.
How much? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, what's your question?
I have a few, but the first question is, when it comes to unearned income, I work somewhere, I got like a stock appreciation, and of course it shows up as earned income. What can I do to prove to the disability lawyers and doctors and judges that it was unearned income? because it was like a stock appreciation, but of course they don't have the proof that that's what it was.
Okay, that's easy. What was the other question?
Is it a good idea to get notes from family members, doctors, having them explain what they've seen with your illness? And like with me, it's not for MS. I'm not here for MS, but I have PEs and fatigue and all this stuff, and people see it, but the doctors don't. Some of them don't communicate as well with the disability people or the judges as I think they should with getting the paperwork to them and all that. And I've been trying to be advocate with getting my own paperwork to, having my own stack so I can go to the courthouse and say, here, you guys don't have it, here you go. But how else can I do that, be more persistent? And
Okay, so
I have a third one. Do you have a third one?
you do?
what do you do? Oh, that was the third.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this is what I mean by being your own advocate. It's a stressful process, okay? It's a process full of paperwork, tons of medications, tons of illnesses, doctors, dates, addresses. You need to supply all this. And that's what, somebody needs to take away from you so that you can focus on your care, okay? So let me start with that. Yes, it's really great to have documentation from your friends, from your neighbors, from people that care about you, indicating how you spend your day, okay? However, they're not medical doctors, and they are biased because they're your friends. So they don't supplement a doctor, okay? You really need documentation from your medical doctor. When we try to get, or the way we try to get documentation in about how you're feeling, and it's a beautiful way because the federal rules of evidence do not apply in these lax hearings of Social Security, is a journal. If you can journal what you're going through, and not too much because you don't want to write too much because then that could be work, but you can keep track of how you're feeling. You can keep track about how you're feeling during the day, or 1 or 2 lines. It's very important as long as these journals are consistent. So if you do it only when, you're going into a hearing, oh my God, I got to put in 2 weeks, that's not going to fly. But if throughout the process you're able to do that, we see it with epileptics. I keep journals for every epileptic. They have to write down any seizure, documentation, observing what actually happened from family members is very important. Your testimony at the hearing level, and I believe you said you were at the hearing level, your testimony is going to be the most important thing. That somebody's actually looking at you and believing that what the doctors say you can do, what you say you can do, you can actually do. That's imperative, okay? So, again, don't go nicely dressed. Go the way you feel, okay? Because they need to try to go into your heart. They need to understand your difficulties, whatever the impairment is, okay? When you saw that section of medical development, that's where those records would go. They're important, but I don't think that I, as a judge, would put a lot of weight to it, honestly. So don't kill yourself trying to get a lot of records. Try to see who can help you with that. And try to make it smart where people that are not your friends, not objective people, not subjective people, more objective people can give you that, okay? With regard to unearned income, does everybody know what the question means, unearned income? Okay, so Social Security really talks about work. Whether or not the earnings that you have in your earnings record, which I can show you again if you want, but there were the numbers, whether or not that was work that you performed and got, or whether or not that was work, that was no work, just income, passive income, okay? I had a surgeon who was suffering with Parkinson's, okay? He was not able to work doing surgeries. And Social Security said, well, you can teach, and then you don't have to worry about the shakes. We had to go through that. Then the same client had unearned income. And Social Security was saying that was work you performed, and we had to show that it was passive. We had to show that it was vacation time, accrued time that was due to him, and when the hospital released him, he got thousands and thousands of dollars, which would have disqualified him. But at a hearing, when you explain it, then it's okay. As long as you've got a judge, you show Sometimes you have to show proof from your accountant or your employer showing this is what you received. That's a no-brainer. Okay, the question becomes with unearned income, and I see this with MS patients, is somebody who turns around and has a real estate license, and they're home and they are able to put something up in the internet, and because of a listing that they put up and maybe 5 minutes worth of work, they made $15,000 in 1 month. That will disqualify you, because even though you didn't do anything except put a listing up for 5 or 10 minutes, you wouldn't have gotten the money but for the fact that you put it up. However, if you are an owner of a company and you receive income as dividends, doesn't matter what you receive, doesn't disqualify you. Money is a red flag for Social Security. The government, the federal government's trying to save money. Anything with income is a red flag and has to be explained. Okay?
Any other questions?
I might have missed this, but what about spouses' income? How does that affect your Social Security disability? Do they take that into account? I wasn't really sure about that.
Only with SSI cases.
Okay, but SSDI, not so much.
SSDI, no. Income and resources are not taken into account with disability insurance cases unless it's work-related. But spousal income does not affect it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
We have time for only 1 or 2 questions more. Anybody? Nobody?
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.